My family surprised me with a birthday dinner. But the cake said, "Oops, just a disappointment." Everyone laughed except me. I got up calmly, took my bag, and left. But not before whispering something to my aunt. 3 weeks later, they were blowing up my phone in a panic. I, 32M, never thought my own family would orchestrate the most humiliating moment of my life. But here we are. 3 weeks later, and they're all scrambling to fix what they broke. Let me tell you how it started and how it's going to end. My birthday has always been a quiet affair. Growing up, I was the middle child who got overshadowed by my older brother's achievements and my younger sister's dramatic flair. Mom always said I was the easy one. Translation, the one who didn't demand attention. I learned early that keeping my head down and being reliable was my role in this family. So when my aunt called 2 weeks before my birthday, insisting that this year would be different and that the whole family wanted to throw me a proper celebration, I was skeptical but touched. She sounded genuinely excited, telling me how everyone had been planning something special and how I deserved to be celebrated for once. Against my better judgment, I let myself get hopeful. The restaurant they chose was upscale, the kind of place where my parents usually took clients. I arrived exactly on time, wearing the new shirt I'd bought specifically for the occasion. The entire extended family was there: parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins. About 15 people total, all seated around a long table with me at the head. Everything seemed normal at first. Conversations flowed, people asked about my job at the accounting firm, and my uncle even complimented my recent promotion. I started to relax, thinking maybe this really was going to be the birthday celebration I'd always wanted. Then came the cake. The server wheeled it out on a cart, and I could see it was professionally decorated with elaborate frosting work. Everyone started singing happy birthday. Phones came out to record the moment, and I felt this warm feeling spreading through my chest. Finally, I thought. Finally, they're treating me like I matter. But as the cake got closer, I could make out the writing. In elegant script across the top, it read, "Happy birthday? Oops, just a disappointment." The singing stopped. The room went dead silent for about 3 seconds. Then someone, I think it was my cousin, started giggling. That giggle spread like wildfire. Within moments, the entire table was erupting in laughter. My mother was wiping tears from her eyes, my father was slapping his knee, and my siblings were practically falling off their chairs. I sat there, staring at that cake, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my stomach. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some bakery error. Someone had specifically ordered this. Someone had planned this moment, knowing exactly how it would feel to have those words staring back at me while my entire family laughed. My aunt, the same one who had called me so excitedly about the party, was laughing the hardest. She kept pointing at the cake and saying something about how perfect it was, how it captured everything so well. That's when I understood. This whole thing had been her idea. I looked around the table at these people who shared my blood, who I'd spent 32 years trying to please and impress, and I realized something fundamental had shifted. The hurt was there, sharp and immediate, but underneath it was something else. Something colder and more calculating. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. The laughter died down as everyone looked at me expectantly, probably waiting for me to laugh along or make some self-deprecating joke like I always did. Instead, I picked up my jacket and bag with deliberate calm. My mother asked where I was going, her voice still light with amusement. I told her I was leaving, that I had somewhere else to be. My father suggested I was being too sensitive, that it was just a joke and I should sit back down. But I was already moving toward my aunt. She was still smiling, probably expecting me to hug her and thank her for the party despite the cruel joke. I leaned down close to her ear, close enough that only she could hear what I was about to say. I whispered that I hoped she enjoyed her little joke, because in 3 weeks, when her husband found out about her affair with his business partner, she'd understand what real disappointment felt like. I told her I'd been keeping that secret for 6 months, waiting for the right moment to decide what to do with it. Now I knew. The color drained from her face instantly. She grabbed my arm and started to say something, but I was already walking away. I left that restaurant without looking back, ignoring the confused voices calling after me. The drive home was surreal. I felt strangely calm, like I'd finally stopped pretending to be someone I wasn't. For years, I'd been the family punching bag, the reliable one who absorbed their jokes and criticism without complaint. I told myself it was because they loved me, that this was just how families worked. But sitting in my apartment that night, eating leftover pizza instead of birthday cake, I realized I'd been lying to myself. They didn't respect me because I'd never given them a reason to. I'd been so desperate for their approval that I'd let them treat me like a doormat. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be their disappointment anymore. I was going to be their problem. Update 1. The first week after the party, I got a few texts from family members asking if I was okay. My mother called twice, but I let it go to voicemail. She left messages saying she was worried about me and that I'd overreacted to what was obviously just a harmless prank. My sister texted asking why I was being so dramatic. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I spent that week doing research. See, my aunt wasn't the only family member with secrets. When you're the quiet, reliable one who everyone confides in, you accumulate a lot of information over the years. Information that people assume you'll never use because you're too nice, too eager to please. My uncle, my aunt's husband, had been suspicious about her behavior for months. He'd mentioned it to me during a family barbecue, asking if I'd noticed anything strange. At the time, I'd deflected, not wanting to get involved. But I'd been paying attention. I knew about the late-night phone calls she claimed were work-related. I knew about the business trips that didn't align with her company's schedule. I knew about the new clothes, the sudden interest in fitness, the way she'd started guarding her phone like a state secret. Most importantly, I knew about the afternoon I'd stopped by their house unannounced and seen her car in the driveway alongside one I recognized, her husband's business partner's BMW. I'd left without knocking, but the image had stuck with me. During that first week, I confirmed what I'd suspected. A few carefully placed questions to mutual acquaintances, some basic social media investigation, and a conversation with someone who worked at the hotel where they'd been meeting. By the end of the week, I had enough evidence to destroy my aunt's marriage and her husband's business partnership. But I wasn't ready to use it yet. I wanted them to sweat a little first. Update 2. Week 2 was when things got interesting. My aunt started calling me daily. At first, her messages were casual, asking how I was doing and suggesting we grab coffee to talk. When I didn't respond, they became more urgent. She started showing up at my apartment building, waiting in the lobby until the doorman asked her to leave. She sent me a long email explaining that the cake had been my mother's idea, that she'd just gone along with it to keep the peace. She swore she tried to talk them out of it, but hadn't wanted to cause family drama. She begged me to call her back, saying we needed to talk about what I'd said at the restaurant. I deleted the email without responding. Meanwhile, the rest of my family was starting to notice my absence. I'd always been the one who showed up to every gathering, who remembered birthdays and anniversaries, who helped with family emergencies. Now, suddenly, I was nowhere to be found. My mother escalated from concerned calls to angry voicemails, demanding to know why I was punishing the whole family for one silly joke. My father left a message saying I was acting like a child and needed to get over myself. My siblings started a group chat without me, which I only knew about because my cousin accidentally mentioned it. But the most telling reaction came from my uncle. He called me out of the blue, something he'd never done before. He said my aunt had been acting strange lately, more anxious than usual, and he wondered if I knew anything about it. He mentioned that she'd been asking about me constantly, wanting to know if he'd heard from me. I told him I'd been busy with work and hadn't been in touch with anyone lately, but I could hear the suspicion in his voice. He was starting to put pieces together, and my aunt knew it. That's when I decided it was time for phase 2. Update 3. Week 3 was when everything came crashing down, exactly as I'd planned. I'd been watching my uncle's social media, waiting for the right moment. He was a creature of habit. Every Friday, he posted about his weekend plans. This particular Friday, he mentioned having dinner with his business partner and their wives to celebrate closing a big deal. I waited until Saturday morning, then sent my uncle a simple text. I told him I'd been thinking about our conversation and that there was something he should know about his wife. I said I didn't want to get involved in family drama, but I couldn't keep quiet anymore about what I'd witnessed. I attached 3 photos I'd taken discreetly over the past few months. His wife's car at the hotel, her having lunch with his business partner when she was supposed to be at work, and a screenshot of a social media post where she'd checked in at a restaurant the same day his partner had posted from the same location. I didn't elaborate or explain. I just said I thought he deserved to know and that I was sorry to be the one to tell him. Then I turned off my phone and went for a long walk. When I turned it back on 3 hours later, I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My aunt had called 12 times. My uncle had called twice. My parents, siblings, and various other family members had all tried to reach me. The messages ranged from panicked to furious. My aunt was begging me to call her back, saying there had been a misunderstanding and that she could explain everything. My mother was demanding to know what I'd done and why my uncle was calling her asking about family secrets. But the most satisfying message came from my uncle. It was short and direct. "Thank you for telling me the truth. I'm sorry about the birthday cake. You deserved better from all of us." By Sunday evening, the whole family knew. My aunt had confessed everything when confronted with the evidence. The affair had been going on for 8 months. My uncle had kicked her out and was filing for divorce. His business partnership was over, and my aunt had lost her job when her company found out she'd been using work time for personal affairs. The family was in chaos. Everyone was taking sides, pointing fingers, and trying to figure out how they'd missed the signs. And suddenly, I was the one with all the power. That's when the real panic set in. See, my family had always operated under the assumption that I was harmless. I was the one who kept secrets, who absorbed abuse, who could be counted on to stay quiet and keep the peace. They'd never considered what would happen if I decided to stop playing that role. But now they were realizing that the quiet, reliable family member they'd been taking for granted had been paying attention all these years. I knew about my father's gambling problem that he'd hidden from my mother. I knew about my brother's tax evasion scheme. I knew about my sister's husband's drinking problem and the real reason they'd moved across the country. I knew everything, and they finally understood that their disappointment had teeth. The phone calls became desperate. My mother showed up at my apartment, crying and begging me to talk to her. She said the family was falling apart and that I was the only one who could fix it. My father sent me a long letter apologizing for the birthday cake and admitting they'd treated me poorly over the years. My siblings started reaching out individually, suddenly interested in my life and my feelings. They wanted to know what they could do to make things right, how they could earn my forgiveness. But the most pathetic response came from my aunt. She sent me a package with a new birthday cake, a proper one this time, with "Happy Birthday to an amazing son, brother, nephew" written in frosting. She included a card begging for my forgiveness and promising to make amends. I threw the cake in the garbage without tasting it. Final update. It's been 3 weeks since I walked out of that restaurant, and my family is still scrambling to figure out their new reality. They're learning what it means to lose the person who held all their secrets, who smoothed over their conflicts, who could be counted on to show up no matter how badly they treated him. My aunt's marriage is over. She's moved in with her sister and is looking for a new job. My uncle has been surprisingly gracious through the whole thing. He even sent me a thank you card and a bottle of expensive whiskey. He said he'd rather know the truth than live a lie, and he appreciated that I'd finally told him. The rest of my family is walking on eggshells around me now. They're all suddenly very interested in my opinion, very careful about what they say and do. They've invited me to 3 different family gatherings in the past week, each invitation more elaborate and apologetic than the last. But here's the thing they don't understand yet. I'm not the same person who walked into that restaurant 3 weeks ago. I'm not their reliable disappointment anymore. I'm not their secret keeper or their emotional punching bag. I'm someone who learned that respect isn't given freely. It's earned and maintained. And sometimes, the only way to earn it is to show people what they'll lose if they don't give it to you. I haven't decided yet whether I'll forgive them. Part of me thinks they've learned their lesson, that maybe we can build something better from the ashes of what we had before. But another part of me remembers that cake, remembers the sound of their laughter, remembers 32 years of being treated like I didn't matter. What I do know is that things will never go back to the way they were. I've seen what I'm capable of when I stop trying to please everyone and start protecting myself. I've learned that the quiet ones aren't always harmless. Sometimes we're just waiting for the right moment to remind everyone why they should have treated us better. My phone is still buzzing with messages from family members, each one more desperate than the last. They want their old dynamic back, want me to forgive and forget and return to my role as the family disappointment. But I'm not answering. Not yet. Let them panic a little longer. Let them wonder what other secrets I might be holding, what other truths I might decide to reveal. After all, I've got 32 years worth of material to work with, and I'm just getting started.